here on day 2 of the NFL Draft on One Bills Live. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you. And bringing in a guy that's usually here on Fridays is senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, to talk about how round 1 unfolded for Buffalo and the prospect they landed in Max Hairston. And we'll take a look ahead to night 2 of the draft as well. Greg, thanks for getting back up with us after a late night with Maddie and myself on the live stream. We talked to you a little bit last night about it with Max Hairston, and people feel that the only reason he was still on the board at 30 was because while he is a willing tackler, it is not a strength of his game yet. We actually talked to Mark Stoops today on the show earlier, and he said he is a guy that is not afraid to get better in that area, and he felt that he did make strides in that area of his game from the time he was a freshman to now. What did the tape tell you about Hairston's tackling ability?
Well, it's funny because I made a note, as I was watching him, I said aggressive and competitive as a run defender on the outside, took on blocks and made tackles. So, I thought this year's tape, the 2024 tape, was reflective of that. Obviously, at 183 pounds, he's not necessarily going to be, powerful out there. But I think the number one thing you want is effort, and you have to tackle, and certainly that's a key thing for Sean McDermott and that defense. So, I think so much of tackling as a corner is commitment to it and effort.
Right.
It's not a beauty contest. When you have to get a guy on the ground, you just got to get him on the ground. And as long as you give the effort, and I think he showed that on tape this past year, and obviously his head coach echoed that, then I think you're okay.
Yeah, and of course the headline for Max, we're calling him Mad Max. The headline for Mad Max is 4.28 at the combine. He plays fast. He looks fast. Now he's a little light, and I was making the point he was probably a little light at the combine just so he could run a fast 40. And has since reportedly put on 10 pounds since the combine.
Yeah, he said last night in his press conference he's 192 now.
So
he
plays fast, though, right, Greg?
Oh, yeah. No, he plays fast. He was almost exclusively the boundary corner in Kentucky's defense. He did play meaningful snaps to the field in 2024, but predominantly that was his role in the Kentucky defense. I tell you what really stood out. We didn't get into this as much last night, Brownie, but now that we're kind of talking it through a little more, maybe because I'm more awake, I thought he understood the mandates of zone coverage, pattern recognition, had a good feel for spatial awareness. In every zone, there's conflict areas, there's stress areas. And coaches talk about that all the time, that they're trying to minimize those conflict and stress areas. Some coaches say, hey, we don't want any of that, and we want to teach our guys how to do that. Well, I thought he had a really good feel for that in zone coverage, and we know how important that is in Sean McDermott's defense because, they do play a lot of zone concepts. That's been what they've done for years. But he can also play press man. So I think, ultimately you drafted a corner that can play in both zone and man, and I think is relatively advanced in zone coverage concepts for college corners who are not usually that good at it.
So we've got two kinds of corners at the pro level. It's an inside corner, slot corner, and then an outside corner.
Yep.
In college, you've got a boundary and a field corner. Tell me the differences.
Well, the difference in college is relatively extreme, Steve, because of the hash marks.
Right.
The hash marks in college are much wider. I think it's 6.5 yards, something like that. Somebody will know the answer to that exactly. But the whole symmetry of the game is different in college football. The wide side of the field is really wide. When I watch tape, when I jump from NFL tape to college tape, the wide side of the field in college football looks like the Grand Canyon. It's so wide. It's one reason why there's a lot of high completion percentages in college because guys throw those tunnel screens or bubble screens to the wide side of the field. Anybody can complete those. So when you play boundary corner in college football, you're playing man coverage because there's no way you're getting a lot of safety help because safeties clearly have to cheat to the wide side of the field in college since there's so much space. So when you're playing boundary corner in college, as Hairston did, you're pretty much playing zero man. So he's very used to playing man coverage without help.
What do we believe his learning curve, and this is a little bit of a hard question to answer, I realize, Greg, but Do we feel his learning curve could be any shorter due to the fact that he played SEC competition every single week?
That's a hard question. You're right. I would say his learning curve will involve playing press against bigger receivers. I think that's where the curve comes in, because even though he's 192, that's what he said, and I'm sure he's right. He's 5'11", 192. So that's not necessarily small for a corner in today's NFL, but he's going to go up against, big receivers. We were talking about the schedule briefly before I started. You think about playing against the Bengals, and assuming he's a starter, he's going to match up to a Chase, to a Higgins, big physical receivers. You play Philadelphia, and you match up to an AJ Brown, who's a big physical receiver. Those are the receivers that he's going to have to match up against, and he doesn't have a lot of experience doing that. So that's where the learning curve comes in. I think Brownie is matching up to the big physical NFL receivers who are really good, getting off the line of scrimmage.
What about the level of, I don't know, I guess what I'm looking at is the Bills last year had more man coverage calls under Bobby Babich, and part of that was due to the fact that they could not get a consistent pass rush to help the coverage in a zone call per se on certain down and distance. I expect them to address their pass rush tonight or at the latest day 3 to some degree, but having a guy that can play, at least based on his skill set, press man, how does that help the defensive play calling in terms of variety of calls?
Well, you always want to have as many options as possible. But I thought you made a great point there, Brownie. When you're, zone coverage is the bottom line is there's really in the NFL, there's 3-step drop timing, there's 5-step drop timing, and there's 7-step drop timing. No zone coverage is truly built to get beyond 5-step drop timing. At that point, it's on the pass rush. So if your pass rush is not getting there and the quarterback is sitting there for 2.5 seconds, which is 7-step drop timing or longer, then your zone coverage concepts, they can be brilliantly put together. They can be executed brilliantly, but then the holes and the voids just open up. They're not meant to go beyond that. You have to get a pass rush. So ultimately, what you're looking for is for those two things, obviously, to work together, the pass rush and the coverage. But it's really hard to play a high percentage of zone if you can't rush the quarterback.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about tonight. I mean, we've got another couple of rounds to go tonight, and we'll get a belly full of it. We're trying to figure out where the Bills might go. We think, and Bills fans are begging them to take some big run stuffers or some edge rushers. There was a big run on them in the first half of the first round even. I mean, they went off the board right in the middle third of the round. What are your thoughts on the best guys available? Maybe if the big guys are not there, let's talk about safeties like Emanwari, Winston, Watts, Sanker, a safety, or maybe a wide receiver, the best wide receivers that are available.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a sense that they do need a big defensive tackle, just, based on the size of the players that they have. And there's still a lot of those guys left. Then it comes down to what you like. And, again, I don't know what their board looks like, but there's still a lot of quality D tackles available. You have, Joshua Farmer from Florida State. You've got Alfred Collins. These are big dudes. Alfred Collins is kind of freakish. He's 6'6", 332 with 35-plus inch arm length. You've got Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. I don't know how they feel about Shamar Turner or Deion Walker from Kentucky, but there's plenty of D tackles left if you're looking for that big D tackle in the middle of your defense. Safeties, I personally felt Emanwari was the best safety in this class. Obviously, he's still on the board. There's a good number of safeties available in this class that can play certainly quarters type coverage. They can play that 4 across concept. Emanwari can do that. You have Xavier Watts is available. You mentioned Winston, who really didn't play much this year, only a game and a half, I think it was. I really love Andrew Makuba. I don't know what he weighs now. He weighed 186 at the combine. That's awful light for a safety, but I love the way he plays. I love the versatility of Jalen Reed from Penn State, who aligned in so many different positions and roles with the Nittany Lions. So, if you're looking for a guy that you feel, can really play downhill and be a meaningful part of your run defense, Lathan Ransom from Ohio State, I mean, you put on the tape and this guy shows up. So there's plenty of safeties that are available that if you're looking for one, it just depends on what you like and who you think fits best in your defensive philosophy.
Right. If you want to get a penetrator up front, you got a guy like TJ Sanders on the board.
Yeah.
Only goes 290, and there are a few others too. An edge rusher who's supposed to get down to the bottom of round 2 is that Femi Oladejo from UCLA. What do you think of Sanders as a penetrator inside and Oladejo as an edge guy?
Yeah, Sanders is he's more at this point in time, I think a sub-front player than he is a full-time player. He could develop into that, and I even made that point when I watched him. But I think he's going to be an ascending player because I think he's got the traits to develop into the one of the better D tackles in the league. I mean, as a pass rusher, um, he showed an effective array of moves. He used his hands really well. He had swipes, rips. He was able to attack and defeat half a man, playing off contact, violent hands. I think that's his game right now. Now, there were certainly reps of power and strong hands in the run game, but I think at this point he probably comes in as a sub front player. I really liked his tape. He's not big the way you think of an interior D tackle.
Yeah,
Oladejo, Brownie, I think is one of the most intriguing guys in this draft class.
Yeah.
Because this guy just looks the part. He played in 2023. He played stack backer. This year he played basically on the edge. And I think that this guy's best football is absolutely ahead of him. I mean, he is a twitched up, chiseled frame guy. He's got natural suddenness to him. You see it as an edge pass rusher. He lacks experience doing that. He'll need some work for sure. But I think this guy could be a really interesting player. He could be a movable chess piece too because he has that experience as a stack player. I don't know where he'll get drafted, and it may not happen year one. But of course, as you get later in the draft, sometimes guys don't necessarily play a ton the first year. But I mean, he's got a sized frame, explosive, strong, heavy hands profile that I really enjoyed watching this guy's tape.
Okay, just two
Right.
more guys I wanted to run past you. So Nick Scourton from Texas A&M,
Yeah.
not a twitched up guy, more of a heavy-handed power guy, and then Darius Alexander from Toledo, who's more of an inside guy. What do you think of those two guys who have a chance to be on the board later in the round tonight?
Yeah, Scourin's a really intriguing guy. He led the Big Ten in sacks 2 years ago. This year he transferred to A&M. Didn't put up quite the same numbers. Pretty advanced as a pass rusher, though. I'd say of all the pass rushers in the class, even though he's not twitched up and sudden, I guess the guy that came to my mind when I was watching him was someone like Josh Sweat. Not twitched up and sudden, but I thought he had a pretty deep arsenal of moves. I thought he had a lot of tools in his toolbox, Brownie, as far as a pass rusher. Had a really good spin move. I liked him. I watched him for 2 years. Darius Alexander is a truly fascinating guy. He was at Toledo for 5 years. He has everything you could want. Everything is in this guy's body. And when you watch him, you see reps where you just think this guy is going to be absolutely special. I hate to use the word consistent, because it's one of those words that doesn't mean a lot. But it's all there. You just would like to see it more. I certainly don't have any idea the reason you don't see it more, but everything you want in an interior D tackle is there, whether you want to one gap him, two gap him, whether you want him to play three technique, whether you want him to be a two gap player. I mean, it's all there. It's just a matter of getting it out of him getting the execution out of him on a more consistent basis.
Last one from me. Let's get. Can I get your thoughts on how you thought that draft went last night in the first round? Is there any surprise to you about Shadur Sanders falling? That's the story of the day, where people are kind of shocked that a quarterback of his projected abilities, somebody didn't jump up back into the first round to take him like they did Jackson Dart. What are your thoughts about how that happened and why?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't surprised because to me he was right on the edge. I think that's the larger question, Steve. And look, you guys know you have one of the best quarterbacks in football, maybe the best quarterback in football. I've heard that from some coaches I talked to, throughout the year. And you see the value, and of course Josh is a freak, but you see the value of guys being able to make plays outside of structure, which has become very, very important in this league. So the guys that can't do that as a foundation of their game. Well, let's be clear. Sanders is not a statue. He can move, but he's at his core, Steve, he's going to be a pocket quarterback if he's going to succeed in the league. So at the end of the day, if you're going to be a pocket quarterback, there's so many things you have to be so precise with. And there are some concerns about that with Shadur Sanders. So once you think of it, I think from that 30,000-foot level, the wider lens, and you think about what kind of quarterback that he has to be in the league, you think, okay, he can make it for sure because he does a lot of good things. But then there's some things that clearly need to be cleaned up because at his core, he's a pocket quarterback. And one of the things, and I know this is an issue for people, is he has a tendency when he feels pressure to retreat backwards. And that's a problem in the NFL. You cannot retreat backwards. And, I found that to be a concern on his tape. So there's a lot of pluses, there's a few minuses, and then the kind of quarterback he is such that you don't necessarily, that's why Jackson Dart, people can debate this all day long as we are right now. That's why a Jackson Dart goes higher because Jackson Dart can make plays with his legs more so than Shadur Sanders can.
And is it possible that a guy like Shadur Sanders, because he's that classic pocket quarterback, he's a victim of the trends in the NFL at the current moment?
Yeah. I mean, you could make the argument, and I've made it, and then I saw other people make it as well after I spoke about it months ago. I think that Sanders is kind of a lesser case C.J. Stroud. Stroud was a better prospect coming out. He was a second pick in a draft. He's had success in the league, as you guys know, because you played them. He's bigger, he throws it better, but he's essentially a pocket quarterback. Now, he moves once in a while. None of these guys are true statues anymore, just the nature of athletes now. None of these guys are true statues, but essentially they're pocket quarterbacks. So when you're a pocket quarterback, you have to be really, really good. And like I said, I think that with Shadur, there's some things that would concern some people, and he'll probably get drafted tonight, maybe early. And that's probably where he should be.
Greg, thanks as always for the insight. We'll catch up with you tonight on the live stream after the Bills make their picks. And thanks for all the help, dude.
Appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it. I love talking ball with you guys. Thanks so much.